Okay, so ignore the hair. This is how I sleep. Fun fact. It is 12:24 a.m. on Friday, March 25th, and yes, I'm still awake. I feel like a kid on Christmas Eve. I'm making myself wait until tomorrow morning to watch it because I already know I'm gonna watch it in one sitting. I've baked cookies. I'm prepared. I don't want to go watch it so bad. Self-control, right? All right, I'll see you guys in a second with different hair. Well, same hair, but different hairdo. Bye.
I was disappointed, and I'm really bummed about that. I do want to preface that the quality of the show did not go down as far as the visuals. The acting was all still superb. It was mainly writing decisions that were made that I did not agree with and I, as a viewer, did not enjoy. And I will go into those. So, this is a spoiler alert. I do go into major plot points and all of that from both the book and the movie. So if you don't want to hear that, just know that is what this video will contain. Last season, I had no idea what Bridgerton was, so I went into it blind and I watched the season before I read the book, and this time it's opposite. I will say that while Antony's book is my favorite of the series by far, that I was not particularly hoping for or wanting an exact recreation of the book, nor did I have like specific scenes or plot points from the book that I was hoping would translate onto screen. I wasn't really expecting that. That has nothing to do with my opinions on how the season went. I think if I had simply just watched the season without reading the book, I would feel the same. And so here we go. The way they introduced Kate in the series, she's not an overly likable character to me. I find her to be a little brash and outright rude, whereas in the book, she is stubborn and fierce and is independent in a very admirable way. She still is able to, hold a conversation without openly insulting somebody. And I feel like they towed the line a little bit with the first conversations she had with Lady Danbury, or the way she was introduced to Violet Bridgerton, that kind of irked me, and I felt like didn't set her up on a path as a viewer for the character to go, I like her. And it's not an I don't like her, but it was just kind of a weird middle ground where you're like, I don't know how to feel about this. That said, they do go into the first half of the season, I would say, follows the book fairly closely. And then the last half of the season, they kind of rewrote the entire thing. And I'm not against that, but in this case, the decisions that were made, I just didn't like. Number one, in the book, Edwina and Antony never get engaged, and in the show, they do. I have nothing against that specific plot point, especially since Antony is stubborn to a fault and is determined to do what the Viscount would do and all of these things. I totally get why they decided to include that into the TV show, and I'm not upset about that. I am upset with how far they took it. If you hear my dogs, I apologize. Now, the relationship between the Viscount and Kate. I loved it. I loved that it was a push-pull romance. There's an asterisk next to that I will delve into later, but I loved that they really played on the tension and the way that the two characters bump heads. I said it before and I'll say it again. Jonathan Bailey is Antony. He embodies that character so remarkably, and I felt like they, to a point, played into that and played into the tension and the depth of emotion that he can bring to the character of Antony. The problem was I felt like they decided to play to that as in regards to Antony's stubbornness and anger and denial, versus showing us how that intensity can go into things like his tenderness and his care for the people that he lets in. And I'll delve into that in a second, but I do want to finish with saying that as far as the progression of Kate and Antony's romance on the screen, I felt like they played into the push-pull too far. There was at least 5, I'm pretty sure, moments where it was these moments of deep tension where it's oh my God, they're gonna kiss, they're gonna they felt it. There was these moments of intense attraction and where they briefly gave into it. And then the moment would be broken and then they would walk away and they'd be like, that never happened. And I understand, especially with the expectations of the ton, Antony's expectations of himself, and the intentions that he's already set forth with Edwina, I understand that there would be a little bit of a harder time to admit their feelings outright, especially given the characters that both Kate and Antony are, stubborn. It wouldn't be an outright immediate, oh, I like her, I'm going to go with her, forget this Edwina chick. But at the same time, they played into it so much that it got to a point where if they did have that moment, it lost its impact. I sat there and I'm like, nothing's going to happen right now. They're not going to do crap because they played into that specific arc too many times. While the tension was still brought by the characters and by the actors, me as a viewer, I knew what they were playing at that point, and it didn't leave me on the edge of my seat. It left me frustrated. That really was something that I was like, all right, how long are we going to do this? Now, fast forward, Antony proposes to Edwina. Again, that plot point specifically, I'm not too bothered by because I understand why they included it. But them going to a point of being at the altar to get married, I felt like was completely unnecessary and made both Antony and Kate a little bit less likable. Antony is in his 30s. Kate is what, 26? In the TV show, and granted, women are not allowed to have many relationships, so she does have a little bit of emotional immaturity in regards to relationships and what she is feeling, and she's a naturally stubborn person, so there will be an issue around being able to decide what she wants and how to go about what is happening between her and Antony. But at the same time, I felt like it was almost implausible to think that these two people could look at and understand their depth of attraction to one another and consistently reach moments where they almost gave into it, knowing that they are not able to get control of the situation and get control of their attraction to one another. The fact that they continued down this path of planning this wedding, of Edwina thinking that she was going to marry the Viscount, despite this, I didn't get why that was the plot point. And I felt it was interesting that in the book, Edwina had her own suitor. She wasn't in love with the Viscount. But in the TV show, she literally, right before the wedding, says, I love him. And I felt like that was an interesting dynamic to add because it only furthered the betrayal that both Kate and Antony enacted on Edwina. No matter how that would go on, no matter how they unraveled the fact that Kate and Antony had that attraction and wanted to be together, even if he had proposed, if they hadn't gotten to the wedding, there would still be enough betrayal to, I think, further the plot as far as the sisterly conflict that they portrayed between Edwina and Kate. They could have still done that. They didn't have to take it to a wedding. And I felt like that was an unnecessary addition to the plot that only furthered to put negative effects on the character arcs of both Antony and Kate. Kate more so, because while Antony was the one that most emoted his inability to control himself around Kate, Kate very much seemed almost too cold and aloof and just detached from it all, considering how much we are to believe that she loves Edwina more than anything and that she wants Edwina to find happiness more than anything. Her detachment in regards to Antony almost seemed worse. I don't know if that made sense. But let's go to the wedding. First off, the wedding took up an entire hour-long episode. It was an hour long of where Edwina gets to the altar, and only when Kate drops a bracelet and Antony goes to pick it up for her does she realize that Antony and Kate have feelings for one another. And then it's an hour of like 17 conversations. Half of them were not necessary. And at the end of the day, in the midst of that, with Edwina knowing, Antony is still like, we can get married. And at that point, I'm like, what is happening right now? There is a point where you have to call it, where you have to look at and realize that you have broken Edwina's heart. Kate has ruined her trust that her sister had with her. This wedding is about to become the biggest scandal. And whether or not it's salvaged, there'll still be a mark on it. And rather than have Antony and Kate go, you know what? Fuck it. At this point, we have ruined many of the most important relationships around us in our denial of each other and our feelings for each other. And rather than facing that and going, okay, this can't go on like this, they dive deeper and they go, no, it must go on like this. And it was so incredibly unsatisfying as a viewer to watch. Especially when you know in the book, I mean, I had moments where I started to doubt it. But when you know in the book that they do end up together, you're like, why did the writers feel they had to push it this far? Why did they have to go this far to get to their point? They didn't. They chose to. And I was so confused as to why that decision was made. That said, I could have gotten over how incredibly, almost awfully long the wedding episode felt if at the end of it, when Edwina says, F this, I'm not marrying you, I deserve more, Kate and Antony had been like, look at what we did. And taken the time to step back and recognize how their actions contributed to the ruin of this wedding, but also then realize that it was for a purpose, and that is the fact that they can't stay away from each other. And instead what happens is they make out in the cathedral, or whatever that building was, and then Kate goes, you know what, no, that was a mistake, that didn't happen, we should be ashamed of ourselves. Why? At this point, you've already ruined both family names. There is already giant scandal around you. There's not really anything that you can do that will redeem yourself. So why is she still denying it? It made no sense to me, and it made me like her less. They could have maybe found a way to explain it better, because I could feasibly believe that Kate at that point is punishing herself because she does not believe that she deserves to be happy with Antony after she has ruined her sister's wedding, after she has broken her sister's heart. I could believe that, but that was neither shown nor explained to us that that is where Kate was coming from. As far as it was explained to us is that Kate is still just in deep denial for no reason other than she supposedly hates the Viscount, even though they're incapable of staying away from each other. And again, if they were like 16-year-olds, I would totally get it. But Antony is in his mid-30s and Kate is 26. They have enough maturity within each other, within themselves, to look at each other and recognize exactly what is going on at that point. And I felt like it was a big writing failure that they did not go that direction and instead spent 3 more episodes doing the same thing, having these moments where these characters are meeting, giving into their chemistry briefly, only to back off and like claim temporary insanity and live in denial. And I didn't like it. And I felt like, as far as Antony goes, first off, Antony the character deserved a little bit more. And I felt like they did not take advantage of the talent that they have in Jonathan Bailey in expanding on the other emotions and the other facets of Antony that they could have delved into had they not spent so much time on a push-pull, yes-no romance. The tension between Kate and Antony is intentional, and it is great. And the way that they rile each other up is amazing. And scenes with that are great. But they could have delved into that as well as progressing their relationship. I felt like from episode 4 to the ending of episode 8, their arc of their relationship stagnated. And it was literally just, we're going to kiss, no we're not, that was wrong. We're going to kiss, no we're not, that was wrong. It didn't make sense to me. And I can understand that when you look at it objectively, the plot points for The Duke and I, Daphne's season, and the plot points for Antony's book, and ergo Antony's season, they would be or would have been quite similar had they followed the book closer. So I can understand them wanting to take creative liberties to change it a little bit. I just wish that they would have taken a step back and looked further at the fact that they weren't creating likable characters at a point. They were having the characters regress a little bit, and it was not satisfying as a viewer to watch when you are rooting for Antony to fall in love. You are wanting Antony to find love, and you are wanting them to give in to this. I understand pushing it and wanting the viewer to be on the edge of their seat, but they pushed it too far. Because, and this is my final grief about it, at the end of it, you only get literally 2 minutes of Antony and Kate married. You only get a tiny glimpse of what they are like when they finally give in to their love for each other. I liked that they had Antony fall in love with Kate before they got married. I liked that he admitted it to her first. I liked that they took that and that changed from the book. In the book, it's very similar to Daphne and Simon. They get caught in a compromising position and they have to get married and then they fall in love. I liked that they changed that, but I felt like they could have done that and still given at least an episode of them married. Show Antony softening in marriage, finally letting go of this idealized version of himself that he thought would honor his father's memory best, and finally recognize the love that he had to give and give into that. I wanted to see that, and I wanted to see Jonathan Bailey be able to explore that in Antony. And I was left so frustrated that they did not give him the room to do that, and that they instead gave Kate the room to just be so incredibly stubborn and so unsatisfying to watch. And that is not to discount Simone Ashley's portrayal of Kate. She did incredible. They were perfectly, I hit the microphone. They were perfectly matched. So I'm not saying that it's the actor's portrayal that I was disappointed by, because it wasn't. They gave what they could to their roles, but their roles were not written well in this case. And this is, again, I am one person. I do not have the technical attributes to sit here and say that this is exactly what they did wrong and that I have the ability to say that. But as a viewer, this is how I was left disappointed. I expected to feel satisfied, and I did, I guess, expect to see more of Antony and Kate after they married. But I could have been pleasantly surprised to see the proposal to Edwina, but the fact that they chose to add in Edwina falling in love and the wedding, I didn't get it. And I was so bummed by it and I could go on about it and say the same thing in 20 different ways. But at the end of the day, I loved who they casted. I loved what they brought, but I felt like they spent far too much time giving the Featheringtons, specifically the mom, too much of a plot point and too much screen time that it did take away from their ability to further create a more whole dynamic around Kate and Antony. And I felt like they even further hindered the viewer's ability to connect and root for this romance by taking the plot point of Edwina and a possible marriage to Antony too far. I'm frustrated to a great degree because I recognize the talent. It's the same screenwriter that did the first season, and I loved the first season. It's still an incredibly visually stunning work of art. The acting is superb. They had all the components, and they just didn't put it together like in a way that left satisfying, because at the end of it, I did get what I wanted. Kate and Antony ended up together. We got this beautiful declaration of love. Kate finally gave in to her desire, and it was amazing to watch. But then we got 30 seconds of seeing Antony in bliss with Kate, of seeing them together, happy, playful, still wanting to rile each other up, but having that be something that is a way of showing affection, of being accepting of that, and having it be a really soft, genuine, tender give and take. You got 2 minutes of that out of 8 hours of watching them just push each other's buttons and constantly deny it. And if it had been 4 hours of that, I would have been fine. If it had been 6 hours of that, I would have been fine. But to dedicate literally 98% of the season to them refusing to look at what's in front of them and instead take stolen moments of like temporary bliss that they just use to further shame themselves, it was not fun to watch. And I will underline it one more time. I wanted to see Jonathan Bailey be able to explore Antony more and be able to show that side of him in love. And I'm sure we'll see glimpses of it in future seasons, but this was his season. This was his time. And I felt like he was just I felt like time was divvied up between the Featheringtons, between Penelope and Eloise, between Eloise's subplot. I felt like Antony only got a third of the season. And I'm not saying that he should have gotten all of it, but I think that he should have gotten majority, considering it's his season. And I think that's the thing that disappointed me most. The way that they wrote Kate did not allow Jonathan Bailey to show Antony in those tender ways because she was so closed. And I'm just bummed because that was what I was so excited for in regards to Antony's season, was to see Jonathan Bailey be able to blow this character wide open. And he was like superb. Again, I can't discount what he did do. The feelings he evoked and was able to emote when portraying Antony is nothing short of brilliant, I believe. And the same for every other actor. They did their jobs, but the writing left so much to be desired. And I'm genuinely curious if there was one person who looked at it, who looked at the arcs that they created and said, is this what's right for the characters? And I'm surprised, given that Julia Quinn is one of the co-executive producers, that it did go down this way. Because that's one of the things that I love most about the Bridgerton books, is that it does show the meeting of the two main characters. It shows the progression of their romance, and then it shows their marriage. You don't get that with every romance book. You don't get the full spectrum of their evolution. You usually get they meet, they fall in love, there's a conflict, they get back together, the end. You don't get they meet, conflict, amidst falling in love, then they get married, and then there's marital conflict. And seeing, because it's different, especially in Regency era, marriage changed so much for these characters. It opened them up to so much more freedom to be who they could be and who they wanted to be when they were within marriage specifically. And again, I felt like it would have been more redeemable to see Kate, who was previously so cold and seemed so detached from it all, to see her feel safe to open up and to emote and to rely on Antony the way that women back then were only able to do within marriage would have been a great ending for her. And again, we only got the tiniest glimpse of it. And I'm bummed. I'm bummed. Again, I will say it. The quality did not go down. It didn't. I will still look forward to and watch season 3. But I was left wanting so much more from season 2 as far as the writing went. So yeah, that's my spiel. I hope I got all that I wanted to say across, and I hope that it made sense. And I hope that they do leave room and air for Antony to open up and breathe a little bit more in season 3, because that's the biggest thing. And it's so hard because I don't know if I'd feel this way if it wasn't Jonathan Bailey playing it. And I have not seen anything else that he's been in. But the way he embodies Antony, I trusted and I knew that he could bring so much. But the writing did not allow for it. And just final statement, I want to underline, because I know that there is such a strong following in this show, and I know that this show deserves great respect for what it has done. I don't want to discount that even though I did not like the plot points, they were still technically well written. I can't say that it was like shoddy craftsmanship. It was just intentional decisions that I did not feel were best for the characters. Nothing about it felt sloppy or like they just threw it in because they felt like it. It felt very thoughtful and intentional. I just don't feel like they took a step back and really asked themselves if this is what was best for the character and if this would best portray what they were trying to get across and give the viewer the ability to connect to what they were trying to get across in the correct way, if that made sense. So anyways, let me know if you agree or disagree, or if you liked it or if you didn't. Let me know down below. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more of me ranting about things that really don't affect the grand scheme of life. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.